When you think of the Vikings, your mind conjures images of fierce warriors, dragon-prowed longships crashing onto foreign shores, and treasures of gold and silver being hauled back to the fjords of Norway. It's a powerful legacy of conquest. But what if I told you that the single greatest raid in Viking history didn't happen 1,000 years ago? It happened in our lifetime, and the descendants of those Vikings pulled it off without swinging a single axe. They discovered a different kind of treasure, not in a distant land, but buried deep beneath their own stormy waters. They found black gold. Instead of plundering and spending, they engineered a financial machine so immense, so powerful, it now holds more concentrated wealth than any empire their ancestors could have ever dreamed of. This is the incredible story of how Norway, a small nation on the edge of Europe, defied history, sidestepped the infamous resource curse, and built the largest and most transparent sovereign wealth fund on earth. This isn't just a story about oil money, it's a masterclass in discipline, foresight, and how a nation's culture can forge its economic destiny. To truly grasp the miracle of modern Norway, you must first understand its humble past. In the early 20th century, Norway was far from a global powerhouse. It was a rugged, sparsely populated nation, having only gained full independence in 1905. Its economy was built on the harsh realities of its geography: fishing in treacherous waters, a world-class merchant marine that sent its sons to sea for years at a time, and small-scale industry. The winters were brutal, the summers short. For centuries, survival was dictated by hard labor and resilience. Norwegians developed a culture of egalitarianism, born from necessity. When everyone is fighting the same harsh environment, class distinctions matter less. This cultural foundation would prove critical. No one in 1950 would have predicted that this modest country would become one of the wealthiest societies on the planet. Then everything changed. In the 1960s, a new kind of exploration began with seismic survey vessels. International oil companies had a hunch that the turbulent North Sea might be hiding significant deposits beneath its frigid waters. The first exploratory wells came up dry. Experts began to doubt. But on August 21, 1969, the drill bit of the Ocean Viking rig struck something extraordinary in the Ekofisk field. It wasn't just a discovery, it was a revelation. One of the largest offshore oil fields in the world, containing an estimated 3.5 billion barrels of oil. For a nation of barely 4 million people, the scale of this wealth was staggering. At the time, Norway's entire GDP was just $14 billion. Within a decade, oil revenues would match and exceed that figure annually. It was as if the Norse gods themselves had unlocked the treasure chest at the bottom of the sea. But before Norway could celebrate, its leaders did something remarkable. They looked around at the world and saw cautionary tales everywhere. History is littered with the ghosts of nations that struck it rich and ended up poorer in every way that matters. Economists have a name for it: the resource curse. The mechanics are brutal. A sudden influx of easy money from natural resources often leads to rampant corruption, political instability, and economic ruin. It inflates the nation's currency, making other exports uncompetitive and hollowing out manufacturing and agriculture, a phenomenon known as Dutch disease. Venezuela, once the richest country in Latin America, became a cautionary tale of how oil wealth can destroy a nation from within. Even the UK's North Sea oil bonanza in the 1980s was largely consumed year by year, with little financial legacy remaining. Norway saw these traps clearly, and made a collective decision to refuse to fall into them. Instead of a wild spending spree, Norway built a fortress of rules. This is where the story turns from luck to genius. In the 1970s and 80s, Norwegian politicians across all party lines engaged in a profound national debate. Oil revenues were flowing in, and the temptation to spend was enormous. But Norway's leaders reached a revolutionary consensus. This money was not theirs to spend freely. It was a national inheritance, belonging not just to the living, but to all future generations of Norwegians to come. This wasn't just smart policy, it was a deep-seated cultural instinct. The same long-term thinking that led their ancestors to build ships strong enough to cross oceans was now being applied to building a financial structure strong enough to outlast empires. In 1990, this vision was codified into law with the creation of the Government Pension Fund Global. Its design was a masterpiece of financial discipline, total sequestration. Every single dollar of state revenue from oil and gas activities flows directly and automatically into the fund. It never touches the government's general budget. Politicians can't raid it for pet projects. The spending rule, the crown jewel of the system. The government is only permitted to withdraw an amount equivalent to the fund's expected long-term real return, around 3% annually. This means the principal is never touched. The fund can grow forever. Global diversification. The fund is mandated to invest 100% of its capital outside of Norway. This brilliant decision insulates the domestic economy from overheating and diversifies the nation's wealth across more than 9,000 companies in over 70 countries. Ethical guidelines. Unlike most sovereign funds, Norway's operates under strict ethical guidelines. It divests from companies involved in severe environmental damage, corruption, human rights violations, and nuclear weapons production. Radical transparency. In a world where most sovereign funds operate in deep secrecy, Norway publishes every single investment annually. Anyone can look up exactly what the fund owns. This transparency creates accountability and prevents corruption. This wasn't a rainy day fund, it was a perpetual endowment, an economic longship designed to sail through any storm for centuries to come. At first the numbers were modest, but the relentless power of compound interest and unwavering financial discipline began to work its magic. By the 2000s, the fund had swelled into the hundreds of billions. Today it stands at over $1.7 trillion. Let that sink in. The fund owns on average 1.5% of every single publicly listed company in the world. It owns vast real estate portfolios in London, New York, and Paris. Every Norwegian citizen is effectively a global shareholder, with a personal stake worth more than $300,000. To put this in perspective, Norway's fund is larger than the GDP of all but 12 countries in the world. It's 3 times the size of Norway's entire annual economic output. But here's what makes Norway's story truly exceptional. They don't behave like they're rich. When oil prices surged to record highs, peaking at over $140 per barrel, Norway didn't splurge. There were no mega projects, no architectural vanities. While Gulf states were building indoor ski slopes in the desert and kilometer-high skyscrapers, Norway stuck to its 3% rule religiously. This discipline kept inflation low and its other industries thriving. Norwegian companies in shipping, aquaculture, and renewable energy remained globally competitive. The work ethic remained intact. The fund doesn't shower citizens with cash, but it provides something far more valuable: security and stability. Norway consistently ranks at the top of global quality of life indices. Healthcare is universal and excellent. Education is virtually free. Social safety nets are comprehensive. Poverty is virtually non-existent. And here's the beautiful irony: when Americans buy iPhones, Germans buy cars, and Chinese build infrastructure, a tiny fraction of that economic activity flows back to Norway's fund. The Vikings found a way to collect tribute from the entire world, peacefully, legally, and perpetually. The fund is now Norway's ultimate shield. During the 2008 financial crisis, when banks were collapsing and nations were implementing brutal austerity measures, Norway simply drew from its massive savings. During the 2020 pandemic, while other nations were drowning in emergency debt, Norway tapped its fund to support businesses and citizens. When oil prices collapsed in 2014 to 2016, crushing other petrostate economies, Norway barely flinched. The fund's value kept growing through global stock market gains. That isn't just economic comfort, it is true sovereignty. Norway's story isn't finished, and challenges loom. As the world transitions toward renewable energy, the North Sea's oil will eventually decline. But the system was designed for exactly this. The fund is already transitioning. It no longer invests in coal or oil exploration firms. Its holdings increasingly favor technology, renewable energy, and sustainable businesses. Norway essentially used its oil wealth as seed capital for a permanent stake in global capitalism. As the world transitions away from oil, Norway will profit from that transition. They've turned a finite resource into an infinite income stream. Norway's strategy turned the resource curse on its head. It converted a finite resource buried underground into a permanent, diversified, and ethical source of global income. The lesson is as profound as it is simple. Most nations, and indeed most people, spend like raiders, consuming resources as quickly as they appear. Norway chose to build like a shipwright, investing in the hull, reinforcing the frame, planning for storms a century away. Wealth is not what you find, it is what you keep and what you build with it. The oil under the North Sea could have cursed Norway. Instead, a culture of discipline turned it into a multi-generational blessing. The Viking money machine proves that true, lasting wealth doesn't come from discovery alone. It comes from discipline, from design, from the courage to resist temptation, and from the wisdom to think beyond your own lifetime. In an age of instant gratification, Norway stands as a monument to the power of patience and the extraordinary wealth that comes from building something meant to last forever. If this story gave you a new perspective on how wealth and power are truly built, show your support. Like this video, subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the financial stories that shape our world, and leave a comment. What other great financial triumph or disaster should we investigate next? Thank you for watching.